Friends, I want to talk a bit more about the Wahda Kabira beat and different ways that we round it and embellish it. It came to my mind, watching people playing, and I thought of this idea. Putting the Qarshi in particular within the Wahda, it's really good to be able to know when you can do that and what are the first things that you have to learn about that. Meaning, like when you just round with two hands only, two fingers, I mean, without the. See, I'll explain this more, but just this basic idea of filling the space with the basics or even the most basic. Okay, this idea. So when you play the Wahda, for example, right, you play basic and then you see you round with two fingers, however fingers you use, and then after that becomes more tangible to be able to put the Qarshi. You see the point? So when you do it, and especially knowing the couple of different placements that are the most used placement for the Qarshi in the Wahda, meaning like this is the first one. See? It's an immediate one, right? That comes immediately. And then the second one, when you have a pause after the dom. See? And when you further around that, so it's a delayed Qarshi, do you see? Versus you see the point? This one comes in immediately. I hope it's slow enough that you can see the difference. Okay, so this is about putting the Qarshi there. The reason behind this discussion is when you play the Wahda actually with musicians and singers, especially in the classical form, when you need more space and more balance, mizan, it goes back again to the mizan. How you can keep that flow. See, the idea of just rounding with the basic sound, it gives you more solidity, more anchor in your playing. And then when you're comfortable enough, you can apply the Qarshi, but being tasteful about it, where it should fit, not something constant and consistent in the play. Sometimes you find that players just get into one pattern and they keep repeating it. The Qarshi is sounding really nice, but knowing where to put it there to keep the flow of the beat and not get into your speed flow, because this is one more important thing. The more you try to apply rolls like Qarshis and things, you'll notice yourself, you start wanting to speed up because they are faster sounds versus just regular rounding. Like in all the beats, like in Maqsoom, in Baladi, especially the slower beats, like you try that, when you put it there, it always calls in for this rush. So if you're not anchored, it becomes a burden on the other players and the whole flow of the music itself. So being mindful of the rounding from the very basic into the just two fingers rounding into putting the Qarshi and where and how to apply this Qarshi to keep this tastefulness in the Wahda Kabira beat and the way we round it. And furthermore, since we're still on the topic, like I just play a little bit with this Qarshi and see how you can play Wahda Kabira, Wahda Tawila, and at the same time try to have a couple of different structure happening within the Wahda. So. The idea of also opening the two Wahda Kabira into becoming a longer beat, we discussed that previously, but that's another thing where when you play with the Qarshi, it gives you this nice bouncy flow between two measures, Okay, so this is basically about rounding around the Wahda Kabira beat. Okay, another concept of this rounding around the beats, especially in the classical singing. Now, if we think of classical, it's the most demanding music in Arabic music because of the structure and the things that you have to memorize and the basic foundations that you have to follow versus just lighter classical or even lighter urban music, folk music, village music. So that's the point. It came to my mind also the same way, like when you play with a muwashah, let's say, for example, with a beat like the nawaht, the 7/8. Okay, when you play essentially with the musicians, you get to see the need to what do you play exactly and how much you put and how much you take out. And I noticed one of the main things is when you start rounding those beats within the singing. Even with the two fingers rounding, like we saw in the Iraq idea, you can round with the Qarshi. Here you don't do much Qarshi, but still you have the two fingers doing this. You see the point? So now you know when you play, actually you have to know how much you have to put of that, so it doesn't push the beat to be faster. Because again, the more sounds you have, it gives you this illusion that there's something happening fast there. The nature of those beats itself is that they are slower beats, so you have to take your time and be subtle with the sound, and then. See if you know. On the bottom, I'm just putting. So this that I'm talking about is the important thing, to find the balance of it so it doesn't pull you. You know, you'll have more control and anchoring. The more you're subtle with it, the more anchor you have, and you'll be able to play the beats without this feeling of urge. Because sometimes you are filling, but then suddenly you have to play more sparse. If you go back this way, it becomes easy, you know, like the way. It's still sparse. And then suddenly if you wanna. See my point? So you always have the chance to come back and be subtle about it. So, and again, when you're physically playing with a singer, you see the benefit of that nothing rushes. You have enough time to refrain physically and then become more grounded again. You know, you're not bound or by the taka taka tak all the time. And again, really, especially with those classical beats, you'll see the need for this openness, just knowing how to play the main sounds with a soft or even more open, like I don't even have to play the grace notes here, like the soft notes. I don't even have to do that. I'll be just do a couple of them maybe, but then keep my attention on this tuck, tuck, the higher sounds. See, so that's one thing to know about playing with the classical beats. Friends, in regards to the 7/8 beat that I did earlier, the nawaht, I'm going to demonstrate one verse of a muwashah. I'm going to repeat it a few times and play it in a few different stages. So to show you what did I mean by doing the basic versus the filled up. I noticed that some muwashahat, they don't have many lyrics to them, words, but they have this ahat and la and ain. It extends, so you need that space. This is muwashah is a good example. It has this kind of element in it. You'll see the ends of the phrases. I just extend my voice to finish the phrase. This is where the drummer has to be really tasteful about filling that space underneath. Remember? So let's go to it. It's in maqam ajam or ajam ashayran as they call it. The beat is nawaht and it's slow 7. Okay, so. صاب في الهوى يا عيني من لي صاب في الهوى يا عيني صاده لحظ الغزال يا ليل يا لا يا لا للي عيني يا لا يا لا للي صاده لحظ الغزال عيني يا لا للي. And it repeats again. So you notice how there's this need for the space. You don't have to fill up as much as on the bottom here. You know, phrase is finished. So if I just repeat the first part. من لصاب في الهوى يعيني. So if you see, I'm also emphasizing those single tech in the beginning and two techs in the end. So that was basically how the flow of some of those morshahat. It's really beautiful, and it's again more tasteful playing, especially as a drummer, where you think that you have to use so many sounds to keep the beat happening, but it's really in this music, and in this case, it's not. It's easy to be able to let go. Counting on those details to keep the beat happening. No, you listen, you hear the music, you hear yourself playing, and then from there you can embellish according to the music. All right. All right. I want to talk about the Malfouf beat and the different aspects around it, the dynamics and the idea of the double strokes and how to produce them in different ways. Probably you noticed that the main sound of the Malfouf based on the double strokes here to fill the space. Essentially, Malfouf is boom, right? And then you go, and then, and furthermore, inserting the Qarshi at the beginning of before the dum and the downbeat. That's one thing also. It's a good exercise and it's a tasty thing, but you really have to be careful that you cannot just apply it, because it takes out of, again, the flow of the dome. So you have to be careful with it. Unless you're flexible enough, you shouldn't try to just jab it there. It's really important to understand that, because you need the flow. See, this touch here is very important. So that's the idea behind the Qarshi there. Okay, and then just being able to flow. And remember also this idea, the more your hand is developed, you don't have to just keep doing the same position with this loudness and everything like that. You start having different approaches by being able to mute and be more quiet, knowing how to manipulate the sound, keep the sound of the Malfouf in the hand in different ways. Right? Just being comfortable with your hand. Strong, loud. And very effective. And also especially here when you have all text, like you have the double kai is like a sound of a tech, and then here how to get more precision in your tech hand. Okay, and then the second thing was about this the double sound. Instead of it's being always on the double here, you start being able to do the two hands. You know, you just change it. Or see the point? Okay, so the application. Also notice how the physical flexibility required to produce a single sound here with the right hand. See? And then cool. So this is another dynamic you can use within the music instead of just being consistent with the double strokes here. And also, if you notice, the two-hand approach allows you putting Qarshi and rolls in the spaces. That's another one. And if you notice how this one employs both singles and doubles. Cool. So those different things, I can just play a little bit longer and see what else can come out of it. You know, things like this. The Qarshi became more intense by adding this extra tech. Versus just the double. By inserting this tech, it adds to the sound. And on top of this, when you apply it within the beat itself, it'll become more intense. When you speed it up, it gives you this illusion and effect, and then you could insert it in the beats. Okay, so it's a principle you can do in any other beats. You know, if I want to demonstrate in the maqsoom beat itself, also that's another thing I can work on.